And thanks so much for joining us today for the HME News webcast sponsored by NikoHealth. I'm Christina Thronson, publisher of HME News, and will be serving as your moderator. Today, we're diving into a topic that's become essential for forward-thinking DME providers: how open APIs are transforming operations and giving providers full control over their tech stack. During the session, Andrew will walk us through how modern APIs empower DME organizations to streamline workflows, eliminate manual steps, improve visibility, and integrate seamlessly with tools that matter most, from AI-driven intake automation to CRM, analytics, e-commerce platforms, etc. Before we get started, just a couple quick housekeeping notes. This session will be recorded and available for on-demand viewing. Please submit your questions at any time and use that Q&A panel directly on the GoToWebinar. I'll present as many of those questions to our speakers during the Q&A portion of the presentation, following the presentation, excuse me. But with that, let's go ahead and get started. Wayne, I'll hand it over to you to kick it off.
Thanks, Christina. Just wanted to, on behalf of NikoHealth, thank everyone for taking some time. I understand how busy DME providers are, so can't thank you guys enough. We're really excited to dive into the world of APIs, which is a day-to-day conversation that DME providers are looking to NikoHealth to help solve some of these complex integration requirements. And as a thank you for joining this webinar, I just wanted to personally invite you guys, if anyone's going to be attending MedTrade in Phoenix in a little bit over a month, we are holding a rooftop event there with live performances, open bar, which no one ever complains about, and a chance to meet about 24 of the NikoHealth staff live in person. So we'll drop this link in the chat. We would love to have any of you guys there. Spots are limited, so if you are interested, just feel free to click the link and register. And at any time you like what you see on this call and you want to set up a follow-on, you can always drop demo in the chat or inquire on our website. So I'll let Andrew, one of our solutions consultants who works one-on-one with many of our hundreds of our customers that leverage our API, to share some valuable insights with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Wayne, for that introduction. That party is going to be awesome. I am jealous. I'm not going to be able to attend MedTrade this year, but come on out, meet the team, and we'll be glad to meet you and get started. Let me go ahead and pull up the webinar here and get situated. All right. So today we're talking about APIs. NikoHealth's APIs are a modern tech stack that stacks up well against our competition. Today we're going to be talking about those APIs, how they work, and how you can use them to unleash growth with your business and improve your workflows. I'm your host, Andrew Polk. I'm a solutions consultant here at NikoHealth. I've been here over a year now. I will say this is a fantastic place to work. The culture at NikoHealth is undefeated. We are a literal rocket ship, Wayne, and everybody's strapped and ready to go. And it's just been an amazing experience. I am a solutions consultant mainly around our APIs and just about every integration touch point within NikoHealth. And we also obviously have Wayne Hudson, who is our growth director here. A little bit of the agenda that we're going to be looking at today. We'll be talking about why API connectivity matters, real world use cases, lessons from a real life example of someone who is integrated with our APIs, and some interactive polls along the way to get some feedback from you all. We would love for you to submit your questions as well. Any questions you have during this process, please let us know. We'll be glad to answer them. If you have very specific questions, we can follow up with you later with tailored answers, exactly what you're looking for, as well as some examples of maybe potential use cases of what you're looking to do. And then we can also send out some contact information for myself and my team. So if we need to dive in with a technical team to maybe answer some of these questions, we can do that as well. So please type demo in the chat if you'd like to see our tool, the NikoHealth platform. and also ask your questions about APIs as we move along here. So why do workflows need rethinking? We have disconnected systems, we have inefficiencies. You may be have patients coming into one system that you need to have in another system. We have a lot of folks that maybe have some patient portals, right? They're entering information in, and that just needs to end up in your billing software because that's ultimately how you get paid. And so what we have today with older systems is everything's disparate. You've got your leads over here, your actual billing mechanism over here on the left side, and then you've got some like sales numbers that you want to portray to other people, whatever the case may be. All these things are disconnected, but with our APIs, you can make that a seamless system that all speaks to each other so that you can efficiently run your business. So what can API solve without all the tech jargon? All an API is, and this is literally what it stands for, Wayne, is application programming interface. That's it. All that means is we have a bunch of fields in NikoHealth, right? Your service line or your invoice, your diagnosis codes that go to that service line, your HCPCS that goes to that service line. All we're doing is surfacing that in an interface that's easily applicable to other systems. It's typically in a format called JSON. I know we said without the tech jargon, but that's all it is. We're taking fields in Niko and surfacing it where a developer or development team can take that information and put it in another system, or take information from another system and place it in our system. Ours is all real time. So you'd be going back and forth with these systems as they happen. The main thing that APIs can solve in this space is this manual entry and dual work that ends up happening a lot in these companies, where you've got someone coming in, a patient intake, for example. Somebody's got to enter that in to the originating system. Well, then they have to enter that patient in again in their billing system, and then create the order manually, and then move it all through that process. And it's very manual and it's very time consuming. APIs, assuming the other system has similar capability, we can just get all that information from them, populate it in Niko, so we're not double entering or even manually entering at all. One important thing to note for our APIs is that they are open. This doesn't just mean that you can access them or the doors open or anything like that. It's a style of API called Open RESTful. It's a game changer in this space because most of the APIs that you're dealing with are an older style of connection. And Wayne, we've used this analogy a couple of times and I really like it, and I'll keep it short. But okay, Amazon, right? One of the biggest players in the world, especially for home delivery of items ordered on their site. When you order something on Amazon, you know that you're going to get that package at your front door or wherever you ordered it to receive at. And not only that, you're going to get a notification that it arrived, and you're going to get a picture of exactly where it is on your front doorstep. That's how our APIs work. So to make the analogy, imagine if you ordered something from Amazon, and instead of it getting delivered to your house and you being told it's there, you have to get in your car and drive to your local Amazon warehouse, knock on the door, and ask them if it's ready. That's how these older systems work. And so then imagine you had to do that every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes to get the most up-to-date information, constantly knocking. Is my package ready? Is my package ready? Is my package ready? And it finally is, and you can take it to your home and do what you need to do with it. Ours work how Amazon works today. We have webhooks within our system that are going to notify you when something happens on an order, invoice, or patient as soon as it happens. This includes status updates, tag updates, overall updates on these data objects. And so not only is it a webhook, it sends it exactly where you want it. You know exactly what to do with it, and it's all in real time. And by the way, most of those older systems are charging every time you knock. So that's why most of these integrations end up being like a nightly feed, and they say that's the only way to do it, or that's the most efficient way to do it. Largely, those become nightly feeds because of the originating system charging every time you ask that API for new information. So it ends up being, hey, instead of asking every 5 minutes, that's going to charge us a lot of money. Let's move that to a nightly cadence. And that's not a limitation of the technology. It becomes a cost limitation. So hopefully, Wayne, that analogy makes sense. That's how modern we are in our approach to APIs, and especially other systems in the space are using that older system. All right, this is our first poll of the day. The poll question is, which systems do you use or want connected? Leave that out there for voting. We got 20% of you voting so far. Close to 50% there, that's good.
And these are definitely a few of the common ones. Another one that we see a lot is with more enterprise organizations that might be using an ERP to manage supply chains, such as SAP or Oracle.
Yeah.
We build a lot of integrations there. We also have some world-renowned health systems that own DMEs on our platform, and typically they'll leverage that type of integration, or even an EMR integration is common for those type of DME providers. Salesforce is a huge one, as well as e-commerce platforms, whether they've stood up something themselves on a patient portal or they're leveraging something like a Shopify. As long as the external tool has corresponding APIs, you can structure a real-time back and forth connection. And I see the most common one here was the CRM outside of the custom tool. So that's absolutely a big one that our clients, big, small, and in between, have really started to leverage. But as you know, we have a lot and a growing customer base of enterprise organizations that may have built tools, you know, a lot of times a means to an end of possible gaps in their current solution that are working really well. Or, you know, we have clients in the medical device space that have referring provider portals. You know, when we share our API documentation with them, it really is music to their ears, the way that they're able to structure more integration capabilities than they've ever been able to before.
So it's very exciting. I love, you know, when we're interacting with these clients. My main function at NikoHealth is to deal with our clients and their use of our external APIs. And so when I get to share that documentation or talk with the development team that's doing it, it's always a good conversation because we're so up to date when it comes to our tech stack here, and really enjoy working with them on that sort of thing. And I'll say the sky's the limit, like because of how we open it up with the patients, invoices, the orders, we can really virtually do anything that that client would like as long as they're capable of building it. So back to this poll question. Number one ends up being custom internal tools. We have CRM coming in at second with 32%, and then e-commerce with 16%. I have seen these custom internal tools end up becoming like patient-facing interactions that would maybe like fall under that e-commerce category potentially, because we have some customers that are sort of utilizing that for both insurance purchases as well as cash sale purchases for that e-commerce portion of things. But the custom internal tools are so vital because a lot of our larger systems that we have bringing on have built very robust internal systems for their folks to work out of. The good news is at any point in the Niko process, you can pull over data. Like if they're saying an order is completely ready to go, if they want to bring it up to the billing object itself and just have a bunch of folks working out of NikoHealth to work those invoices to be submitted, or claim objects as we call them, really anywhere in that process. So custom internal tools, not shocked to hear that. Something we do every day in NikoHealth when it comes to our APIs. All right, moving on here. We have our use case number one, which is going to be data and analytics integration. This doesn't necessarily mean it's our most common use case. It's just first in the list here. So all this is maybe you do have those separate disparate systems. Maybe you are, Wayne, using like an Oracle for Oracle fulfillment or whatever. or you've got a sales force for the initiation of those leads to get those products in those folks' hands, whatever the case may be. Or maybe you're already using like a Power BI or a Tableau to combine all of that data and give your C-suite level folks an overall view of how things are going between all of those systems to give an accurate view of revenue and potential profit. What our APIs allow you to do is get all of your invoice and transaction data to be able to populate it in any other system. So again, all an API is a programming interface that presents this data in such a way that it's easily ingested into other systems. So you have invoices going out throughout the month, you get webhooks for all of them, you use those webhooks to get that information in these other systems, you're able to populate it here and do what you need to do with that data for course of action with your business. Something we mentioned in the poll is CRM integration. Another very common thing within NikoHealth is a lot of our DMEs, a lot of our folks are going to have a sales force, a literal sales force or a sales team out on the road, putting information in these tools that will eventually become what we would refer to as a patient order or invoice. And again, at any point in that process, this information can be brought over to NikoHealth. For instance, HubSpot, we have several clients using this, obviously several using Salesforce and Zoho as well. They have built these processes into that system to equip their sales team to, do what they need to do in an effective manner. And there's just certain points in the process where the information for the billers needs to come into Nico. We can help determine that. We can help you along the way. We can show you what endpoints to use, and we can get your business set up to be automated so that you can grow exponentially. So CRM, something again, happens very often in NikoHealth. I forgot that this was a slide, so we kind of went into that custom internal system thing. But as you well know, and many of you may have them, you spend a lot of time on these internal systems. You've built them out for your process. You've taken into account things that have come up over the years. We don't want to take that away from you, but we do want to be able to get that information into NikoHealth to get you paid. So with that custom internal system, we've built several connections to this, and especially using our external API, it makes it very seamless and works very well together. A bonus use case is going to be e-commerce ordering. Something to point out here, Wayne, is we have new payment endpoints where historically you could only post a payment to a patient in an unapplied status, and you'd have to go back in later to apply that to an invoice. We can now post a payment to a patient and then associate it with its corresponding invoice via API, making the e-commerce integration side of things much easier to track and keep up with. So that's another thing I want to note on this use case is we're constantly adding new endpoints. We're constantly adding new functionality to this. When you get our documentation and see it, and you see something you might want or maybe are curious about, ask us about it. We can either show you where it is located or put it on our roadmap to add to the API so that you can more efficiently run your business. We do that often. This was one of those things. We had a client request it, we put it through the roadmap process, it got prioritized, and now it's delivered so that we can have those payments going back and forth in an effective manner and keep everything in line with your e-commerce side of your business. All right, now we are going to move on to our poll number 2, our biggest opportunity. Where's your biggest workflow opportunity currently in your business? Starting out good there. Any thoughts on any of that, Wayne?
A common use case is, there's a lot of exciting AI solutions in the marketplace. All those companies have leveraged our API to build out-of-the-box integration. So if you're using third parties that are popular in our space, the great part is they can push and pull the data. NikoHealth is not a black box surrounded by a walled garden. It's an open ecosystem where we play really nice in the sandbox, no pun intended, but that is a big one. You don't have to use unreliable methods like RPA to get into our system like others require kind of a backdoor way to do it. We're very big on building things the right way. So a lot of people have used our API to connect third-party AI solutions in a truly connected way is one that stands out. A lot of enterprise organizations that we're working with are currently doing duplicate entry to ERPs is something I'm seeing right more and more. So that's usually an area where we can absolutely move the needle. All these gaps exist, and the nice part about NikoHealth is we have people like Andrew that are dedicated to the project. So they will ensure that if you're leveraging our APIs for one of these use cases, it actually comes to fruition. So it's not just, hey, here's our API documentation, good luck. It's incorporated into either a go live or there's a plan around it to make sure it's actually successfully implemented, tested, and you get all the value of this connectivity.
Absolutely, and thanks for the call out. Our team over here, we love it. We're nerds, okay? We like talking APIs, we like talking fields. We like coming up with things that are gonna work for you. We have our own environments. We've got demo 1 credentials, Wayne. I can play with stuff. I can show you how to do it. I can see how the data looks. We love talking about APIs and the possibility for your business. It's very fun, and it's something that differentiates us. So not only are they older tech stacks, they're also not supporting it fully. So most of it's like, okay, yeah, we've got documentation. Here's the documentation. Here's the dollar amount. On your merry way and build whatever you want, and we'll watch the cash come in. Not with us. With us, you get me and our dedicated team to service our APIs. We're here for support, questions, workflow, showing you how things work. We deal a lot with third-party developers that are working in our system for these APIs. We love doing that too. We've done technical documentation. So not only is it the most modern tech stack in the space, we also have an elite team supporting it, which is also a differentiator. All right, so back to this poll question. We have number 1 by a large amount, automating intake and eligibility. And honestly, Wayne, like these results here, the number 2 in scaling without adding headcount, and number 3 reducing manual data entry and errors. For me, that's all sort of related, and we take care of that all with our API as well. So like Wayne mentioned, one of our largest use cases is third-party API tools. Tenon, SynthPop, Darby, all these ones that have this capability. So in our API, the short of that is we've opened up our fax inbox. So you're probably all familiar with e-faxing. So you set up that account, you set it up in Nico, then all of those faxes come into what's called your NikoHealth inbox. Well, these companies, these third-party AI companies, can access, with your credentials, obviously, that inbox and pull out those faxes, analyze it with their models, and then inject all of that information into NikoHealth as the actual data set. So instead of getting a document with a prescription and a patient and a referring provider and all that stuff, and then going in NikoHealth and manually typing it all in, you can interact with these third-party companies, and then they can create it all the way up to the point of an order, and you're just working that order queue, full fulfillment, and then an eventual invoice and claim object. And then some go even further of like vetting and checking certain diagnosis codes and tagging in our system, which again is all available via API. So they're able to accomplish these workflows rather simply. And so that automates your intake. There's also, now that it says eligibility, we've also recently introduced full-on eligibility endpoints. So when historically you would have had to create a patient and create an order in order to get those eligibility results out of NikoHealth, you can now just hit that endpoint directly and call for that. So that's just another example of us constantly improving this and adding endpoints to it. on that eligibility note there. And the scaling without head count and reducing manual data and entry errors, it kind of goes along with it. Because imagine if you didn't have to manually enter any, and everything showed up in an order queue for somebody to just vet, make sure it's correct, fulfill, and move on to the next step. That would allow you to grow exponentially without headcount, because today you'd have to have, what, 5 or 6 more people to handle that growth. That automation just let you unleash, anyways. So those all go together, and that's also reducing manual data entry and errors, because you're not manually entering anymore. There's no room for typos. And these models are excellent. I've seen some of them. They're great at what they do. They've reduced errors to a bare minimum, and they're excellent systems that work well with our system here at NikoHealth.
And I would
more comments on that. Yeah, there you go.
If I was an attendee on this call, I would be thinking about where those gaps are, where
Right.
your team is doing duplicate entry. And if you're not on NikoHealth, that is an opportunity to kind of understand how we could solve some of those problems. Because in reality, a platform like ours with an open API, you can eliminate any duplicate data entry, assuming that other application has APIs. So that should be, top of mind of how to future-proof your business, and gaps that, where errors happen, should not be a thing. So if it is, keep us in mind, and we're happy to talk through any particular use cases.
Always here for it. Wayne, in that sales side of things, if you're an existing customer, we can reach out and you can have my information, and we can talk about this as much as you want, and lay it all out and see if you're interested in that API portion of our platform. If you're not an existing customer, either way, Wayne, we've hopped on sales calls before to talk about the potential of APIs. We're always here to talk about that, because we love to see what you come up with and can do with it. All right, let's move on here to our next slide. Today, we have Gym Health's story. Gym Health is a client of NikoHealth that heavily utilizes our APIs, and they've built a rather robust patient system for this, as well as internal systems for this. We talked about challenges, solutions, and outcomes. So we sat down with Nicole Norder at Gym Health to discuss this, and we'll come back after we're done here. All right. Hi, Nicole. Thanks for joining the webinar today. We're excited to have you on today to talk about your use case with our APIs. Before we get started, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Andrew. So my name's Nicole Norder. I'm the VP of Product Operations at Gem Sleep. We are a fully virtual sleep apnea company focused on treatment, diagnosis, and support. And we're located virtually in all 50 states and take payer coverage from a lot of major insurance companies. We've been in business for just over 3 years now, and Nico's kind of been a critical part of our growth and operations scalability.
Awesome. That is great to hear. So today we're just going to do a couple of questions to sort of get into your use case with our APIs, so we can kind of highlight the usefulness there of those. So first I want to ask, before you were integrated with NikoHealth's API, what was life like at Gym Health?
Yeah, so our use case is probably a little unique in the fact that we were kind of just getting up and running. With Gem being a fully virtual, sleep clinic, we knew we needed to find an EMR that was going to be able to scale with our business, as well as keep kind of our patient experience first and foremost, front and center. And a lot of that entails having real-time eligibility, really seamless process flows from a DME perspective. And so as we kind of started the search for an EMR system, we stumbled across Niko, and it's really been built with kind of an API first mentality. And so when we were reviewing how that could kind of plug into our current infrastructure and support us for the long haul, it really ended up being a good fit for us.
That's awesome. So good to hear. Sounds like we're on the cutting edge of technology there, both our companies working together to accomplish your workflow. That kind of answers question 2, which is what led you to explore API connectivity as the solution to those challenges.
Yeah, so we're fully virtual, so we don't have a bricks and mortar clinic. And so in order to really offer a seamless experience to the patient where they can really come to us for that diagnosis, treatment, and support, do it all from the comfort of their home. They're getting the device and the home sleep study sent to their house. And so in order to really create that virtual environment, we needed to have a tool that was going to be able to plug into all of those different work streams for us and really make it a, seamless digital experience, as we weren't going to be having, patients be coming into a bricks and mortar store, to take their insurance card or check their eligibility live with them sitting in front of us. So we needed a solution that we could do that all via APIs, as well as kind of maintain a comprehensive record for the patient.
So good. It's so good to hear too that that was the answer to that. And so the next question is, were there multiple systems to connect, and which one did you prioritize in as far as connecting to our API?
Yeah, so we've kind of used multiple facets. The biggest thing that we started with in terms of implementation, and I think is one of the areas that Nico excels really well, is on the eligibility front. So they have used, both Change Healthcare and Availity to kind of pull in all of that eligibility information and do that in a seamless way that we can get that information from our patients kind of virtually, be able to use the API to do the real-time eligibility check, as well as get cost information, and then bring that back into our system to be able to easily tell the patient kind of where they're at in terms of their coverage and whether or not they can use their insurance at GEM or if they need to go more of a self-pay route. So that was where we really started because that's kind of a big intake point for us.
Gotcha. Awesome. So that was a good starting point. So then that leads us into our next question, which was, how was that integration process? Were there any surprises, good or bad, along the way?
Well, for anyone that's on the phone and knows anything about eligibility, it's always a fun ride. I think that from an API perspective, Nico's done really everything they can to offer kind of the full breadth of what's available from eligibility. The fun piece of it is obviously we're in the DME space, so some of those kind of plan benefit information is really buried within the health plan details. And so unfortunately, some of it's not always available via API, not because Nico doesn't make it available. It's more on the payer front. And then the inconsistency of data back from the payers. So it just totally, we're at the liberty of what the payers provide. And until really getting into that experience and understanding what was and wasn't going to be available, we had a lot of learnings to do.
Right. And that's a fair statement, right? There's some things that you just simply can't predict in some of these.
Yep.
But hopefully it was a good experience with our team and getting all that information figured out. And that's just something I want to point to here on this question is we are here for that. We have a whole support team for APIs, and any of those questions that come up or workflow decisions that need to be made, we're always here to help with that. So the next question is, what improvements have you seen since going live? Was there time saved, error reduction, more visibility? Kind of shed some light on that for us.
Yeah, so I have primarily talked about eligibility, but also talk about another area that we've kind of focused on streamlining and optimizing with the APIs. So of course, with eligibility, it was a big time saving for us. We're really able to make sure that the patient ends up in the right pathway and really reducing the amount of phone calls and manual touches and manual lookups that we need to do for a patient. And being able to kind of create that feedback loop for the patients that we do need to find more information on. The APIs make it really easy for us to know whether or not, the patient's active, in review, or failed, and we can easily make work streams based on kind of those various statuses that we get back. The other piece of the API that we've worked really extensively on is ordering and invoicing. So for those of you that don't know, Nico does, conjoin directly with VGM. So we've been able to create a lot of streamlined processes that way for shipping and receiving and delivery, and really streamlining that process to improve communications to a patient, kind of have those real-time updates of where their order is at. And so that has saved us a lot of time, as well as just helped ensure that the patient's getting the best experience, because they're getting that information kind of, real time as they're going through the experience.
Gotcha. Those are great points there. And so something along those lines is, I know sort of Nico and Jim were together, since your inception and stuff like that. But how did the team to react to these automated workflows? And do you have any tips for other DMEs considering more automation?
I think overall, like, the adoption's been great. Your roadmap has kind of continued to add new functionality as you guys have received feedback from your different users and different use cases. Everyone's kind of in a different stage of where they're at or what DME they're offering to patients. It really allows you, the APIs allow you a lot of flexibility to kind of create your own work streams or your own task follow-ups that maybe you can't out of Nico, or you have a different system that you're also connecting to. And from an operations standpoint, the team really likes kind of the full UI. It's super easy to use, easy to see where patients are at in the process, good clear statuses. So from that standpoint, the full patient record, it's got multiple tabs. You have the ability to set payer rules, and all of that information, as well as house your whole catalog in there. So it's really a full breadth of kind of touching all areas and avenues of the business. So what's nice about it is, historically you maybe would have had to buy a system for each one of those things. And this way it's kind of comprehensive in one system. So from our operations standpoint, they love that they can log into one system and really kind of see all those patient touch points kind of in one view and not have to switch between screens and things like that.
That's so good. And really, this next question, I have a little insider info on, but what's next for Gym Health? Are there any other workflows that we're looking to connect with this API?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we give you right, Andrew, we keep you busy. We've always got new things that we're dreaming up over here. For us, a lot of the API focus next is going to be on resupply. So Nico's most recently kind of added a whole bunch of functionality around resupply, and really starting to dive into that from an API perspective, so that we're able to get back in touch with patients kind of when that resupply is up and running. And then there's a bunch of new really cool workflows that are coming out related to rentals and rental management, and really making sure we're receiving payments over time, as well as the communications and things that are going out to patients for resupply. So those are the biggest things on the horizon right now, but lots of other fun possibilities of ways that we'll probably be using Nico in the future.
Awesome. And I can't wait to be a part of that. Like you said, it's so fun to dream. That's really what our APIs allow people to do. Is it doesn't have to be a workflow that's already in place. You can think of virtually anything you want to do that would help you streamline your operations, and we can help work out with that. So Nicole, thank you so much for joining today. It was an absolute pleasure, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you for having me.
Right. Thanks. All right. Always a pleasure to talk to Nicole there at Gym Health and explore their use case and talk to them about that. They love our APIs, and we love working with them to make it as best as it possibly can be for their business. We are coming towards the end here, so we're going to give you some practical takeaways. Number one is start with one workflow that drives the biggest return on investment. We love to advise on our APIs, but it is ultimately your business. So you will know the areas that you want to look at to automate. You will know the areas you want to look at for that reduction in manual entry and errors. We're going to rely on you for that. And you are a business owner, you're an entrepreneur. you would know the ways that you want this to work, and we would love to work with you on making those dreams and thoughts reality. Our second is use APIs to connect, not replace existing systems. Most of your team is used to working in those systems, especially sales teams and other teams similar to that. Not looking to replace it. We want to add API connectivity to make both systems more effective. And number 3 is real-time data equals better reporting, faster decisions, and fewer errors. Our webhooks allow us to do that, and we're very proud of the system that has been built. So that moves us, Wayne, to our final poll question here. Poll question number 3, if I can pull that slide up, is, would this be helpful for your business?
And just to add some context to the call you guys watch, that's just one of, quite literally dozens and dozens of success stories of, being able to meet complex requirements for DME providers, especially as, more and more consumers expect quick digital experiences. Being able to provide this level of connectivity and, our fast-paced niche in healthcare, which for better or for worse is constantly changing and throwing new challenges at us. We have countless providers that we've been able to help bridge a lot of these operational gaps. So, if you're dealing with anything, please put them in the chat. If there's any questions, we'll try our best to answer. If not, we'll get back to you. And you can also put the word demo if you want to see any of this in action. But this is a conversation that DME providers and challenges that they're coming to us every day with, that we're able to, be able to solve with this type of technology. And a lot of them are probably using the same, if you're not on NikoHealth, using the same software that you guys probably are, and they're facing all of these bottlenecks. Part of it being is we don't require you to have a approved use case. Once you have our API, skies really is the limit. You can do what you need to do without your vendor literally holding you back or blocking you from leveraging some sort of technology, whether it competes with it or not. The system is yours, and you should be able to connect it where you need to connect it to get the job done. So this is real life things and challenges I hear every day, after onboarding over 400 DMEs on NikoHealth and having thousands of conversations. So we built this out of pure demand for the marketplace and solving problems for our customers.
Absolutely, and I'm very grateful for that, and I love working with it. The team, again, is fantastic to work with. We're here for you. The API support side of things is also next level. I am biased because it is my team, but we love doing this. We love making those things that you think of a possibility. So submit your questions. If you have questions, let us know. If you would like to see a demo, like Wayne said, type demo in that chat. We'll get you set up. If we don't answer your question today, we will certainly follow up with a tailored answer, make sure we give you the best information possible. And we'd be glad to follow up with additional meetings. So Wayne and the team, we're always open to those meetings and talking about your potential use cases. And they don't mind bringing me on to those to have that conversation. So submit your questions, let us know, and we'll give a couple of just this last slide here. I see Christina came back on there. And that should be it.
Awesome. Before Christina chimes in, thank you, Andrew. And just want to reiterate again, if any of the attendees on the call will be at MedTrade, our entire leadership's coming. We're bringing, I think, 20 plus teammates, and we'll have dozens and dozens of customers there. So feel free to RSVP to our event. It's a great time to meet us, meet our clients. We don't have to talk about work if you don't want to. We can just have a good time. But I want to thank you guys all. Again, I know how busy DME companies are. It means a lot that you guys took some time out of your day to join the webinar. So I'll hand it over to Christina.
Hey, thanks, and great job, gentlemen. I think that was wonderful. I loved the example, especially with going to the Amazon warehouse and running back every time. Very relatable for folks. Wanted to go ahead and shift over to some of the questions that we've received. I'd encourage anyone to continue to feed any questions in. If it's something that's more, again, addressed to just your company, you're welcome to, even make a mention in there, and we'll make sure that we get that on to the Nico team. The first question I have for you is, can you talk more about the webhooks tied to order and patient status updates? Want an easy way to add automation fields, populated or custom form sent out to payers / adjusters, WC focus, work comp focus maybe is what they meant. That's to you all.
That is a great question. So I'll start with sort of a brief explanation of webhooks. So like in that example, Christina, when you're going back constantly, that's what we call polling. So most people in these older systems are used to polling endpoints on a cadence, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or once a day, like we talked about, and getting new updates as they're available in that polling concept. What a webhook it does is you're able to subscribe to that webhook, give it a URL, and this is a little bit of code speak, but it sends the ID for that event to that URL as it occurs in NikoHealth. So just for instance, on the question here, we've got patient status updated webhooks, we've got patient tags updated webhooks, and patient updated webhooks. There's a large amount of things that trigger the general patient updated, but let's just say we have patient status updated. So if you have a form you want, and we even have patient created. So like if this is something you need to queue up as soon as a patient is available in NikoHealth, you can set up that webhook to tell another system, hey, I got a new patient and here's the ID. And then you can go forward with whatever workflow you want. You've got the information as soon as it's available. And then on the return, if you've got a form in an external system that needs to be filled out, that can either be placed on the patient directly via the documents endpoint, or the actual data, if you have it, inserted in via a note or an actual field in that patient record, if necessary. So yeah, we love our webhooks here, especially around patients. We've got several different versions of that can get people where they need to be.
Yeah, real necessary.
Yeah,
what about?
Just to highlight, we do have a fair amount of business in the workers' comp space. So if you want to talk about that, we also have workers' comp specific clearinghouses already integrated into NikoHealth, Japari being the big one. So there may be other, if you're already not on NikoHealth, there may be other opportunities to streamline some of those processes more digitally. For example, submitting electronic medical attachments while billing these claims electronic. Just some food for thought.
Point out. Can you tell me, are there any limitations on the number of connections or integrations that we can have?
No, as it stands today, this is another differentiator we have. When you sign up for our APIs, you get a couple things, right? You get production credentials for your production environment, sandbox credentials, an environment called Swagger that is actually proprietary to you and connected to your sandbox. And then we provide that. However, there are in some use cases where folks are working with multiple third parties, they have multiple systems connected, and they kind of want to keep that siloed. And so we do have the ability to generate additional credentials, and we can label them internally so that we know where that connection is coming from. And then if for whatever reason in the future you have to terminate that connection, we can do that rather easily. But no, there is no additional charge for those extra credentials. It's just sort of all encompassed in the API license that we have.
Perfect, and no limitations. So how does your pricing model handle API usage? Is there a limit on the call volume or data transfer?
Again, at the moment, no. We are not charging for call volume. And really, I'll just kind of back up there. We have one annual fee for our API license that includes all of your connections, and that doesn't, there's no like accrual of calls or anything like that that adds up to a certain amount and gives you like an additional price or whatever. It's always just that one charge. We are going to introduce some rate limiting in the future, but that's just strictly because we got a couple of clients today that are wearing out those endpoints. And we're able to handle it. It's no big deal. It's just that just from a programmatics perspective and our actual like literal framework, it just makes sense to introduce some rate limiting. However, I'll say 99% of customers won't even come close to it. It's something like 300 calls a second, which is a lot, if you can imagine. So yes, on the rate limiting in the future, but like I said, for now, we're not charging anything for additional calls or anything like that. It's just that one fee.
Yep, flat rate. Again, for 99% of DME customers, think of it as just flat rate pricing.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And that also includes a dedicated permanent sandbox. And then, I don't want to use the word unlimited because Andrew's pretty busy, but we provide technical support. So we are there to make sure this goes off without a hitch, answer questions, align on use cases. You have somebody that's in your corner to make this happen. You're not going to get additional statements of work from us. We're there to make sure that you have the best connectivity possible.
Absolutely. And I forgot to put that. So that's usually the thing, right? You get credentials, you get this, you get that. You also get access to me and my team. You'll be provided a Calendly link. So if whatever dev team is working on it, or if you have questions yourself, throw something on our calendar. We'd be glad to meet with you. We're all about it, and we're excited to do it.
Outstanding. Does the API support both one-way and two-way data exchange?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're open RESTful APIs, and all that means is, let's just use patients, for example. I've got a patient endpoint. Well, I can do a lot of different things with that endpoint because there's different functions with open RESTful APIs. I can get that information, which is self-explanatory. I can pull that information out of NikoHealth. I can put information on an existing ID, which means update. And then I can post, which means to create from scratch. So I can pull the information out of Nico, put it in another system. If another system has information, I can put that back in NikoHealth. It all sort of hinges on the ID for the patient in this example. But yeah, absolutely, bidirectional, and really any sort of use case around that, it can go back and forth.
A couple other questions here. What kind of authentication or security measures are in place for the API?
We use OAuth 2, and so we're going to generate your credentials, your one set of credentials for your sandbox and your production environment. Unless, of course, you request more, we can do that too. But with those credentials, what you're doing is you're accessing a system. And really what you're doing with OAuth 2 is you're using your credentials to get another set of credentials to actually use those to access the API. So all of this would make sense to developers. It's a very common security practice called OAuth 2, but that's what we're using.
One more question here, and then I think we can get ready to close up. But how easy is it to get started? Is there documentation, sandbox access, or pre-built examples?
Absolutely. So we have our demo 1 Swagger environment, which is anybody can look at that and check out the available endpoints we have. Our real world examples are like kind of showing some calls, would be probably behind a meeting with me. If our potential clients wanted to do that, I'm sure we could set that up with Wayne. But if you're an existing client, we can do that today. Just send me an email and we can get started on showing you those examples. But honestly, Christina, as soon as they sign up, I submit for the credentials. I send an API welcome email that sort of outlines all this, includes our help articles, Calendly, stuff like that. We can get started that day on building.
And I will say one consistent feedback that we get is NikoHealth is extremely easy to do business with. So whether it's signing up for NikoHealth, working with their team to implement, supporting your needs on a go-forward basis as things consistently change. We take a true partnership approach. We pull the curtain back on everything and, really dedicate ourselves to making sure our clients' needs are satisfied, listening to them. If you have input, we're not sending you to some black hole forum to get votes for a particular improvement in the system. Everything that we've talked about today is a result of actually listening to our customers and delivering on those requests.
Outstanding. Well, thank you both so very much. Thanks, NikoHealth, for being our sponsor, and of course, everyone who's attended today's webcast. Couple quick reminders. The session has been recorded, and the link will be emailed to all of the registrants, whether you attended or not. If we did not get to your question, don't worry. Again, those questions will all be supplied to NikoHealth and their team to directly follow up. Be sure to visit hmenews.com/webcast for additional upcoming sessions. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.